What is the scariest thing you've ever seen while driving at night? A dead, butchered horse laying in the road. Someone had completely skinned and butchered a horse, took the choice pieces of meat, and just dumped it on the highway. I almost crashed into it. Driving to work at 4:30 AM and seeing a cyclist with his head split open and brains on the road. A lonely abandoned shack with a bunch of arrows pointing to it, saying come in. A freaking owl standing on the carcass of a large buck in the mountains at 3 to 5 AM. All you see as you approach are two glowing red orbs, then slowly a becomes huge dark form standing on the edge of the road with eyes of fire. Then you get close enough and this massive freaking owl just gives you the death stare as you go past. You realize it was just a large owl standing on the remains of fresh roadkill. Freaked me out for the rest of the dark part of the drive. Someone I knew locally came across a Jeep that had just crashed into the ditch on a highway at night, flipped on its top, wheels still turning kind of thing. He was the first on scene, so-called 911, and ran down into the ditch. The driver, who was badly mangled, had been tossed from the car and was dying. This guy held him, and the driver died in his arms. The weirdest part of it all was that he found out the next day that it was his cousin, but he hadn't been able to recognize him. Driving down at a lane divided highway, I came up to a couple semis and went into the left lane to pass. I did a shoulder check to get back into the right lane when I saw headlights in front of me in my lane. The car was going the wrong way. I managed to swerve into the ditch. Felt like I was mere centimeters from death. Thought my wife's scream would be the last thing I ever hear, and I never want to hear it again. The semis I passed all pulled to the shoulder to come check on us. Didn't see the car anywhere. I think they just kept going. I was following a gray Toyota Tundra in a massive blizzard through Montana on McDonald Pass. He was going pretty quick most of the way, but must have been unfamiliar with how steep the final few miles are. He got away from me as I slowed down to about 35. Not 5 minutes later I passed his tire marks in the fresh snow that went off the side of the mountain. Pulled over and looked down to see his truck upside down and on fire about 300 yards down. Called 911. He didn't die, but was burnt up pretty bad. Sad and scary, and don't go 50 in the snow just because you have a truck or 4WD. I was on I-70 in Colorado going towards Utah, pulled over at a gas station at 8 PM. Fueling up I noticed a couple of attractive women pumping gas. On the other side of the pump was the man in his late 40s, just staring at these young women without notice of anything else going on around him. I walk inside to go grab some food for the next few hours of driving. When I come out I see both the younger women's car and the older man's truck are gone. I decided to hang out at the gas station for the next hour to catch a little sleep before hitting the road again. After driving for a few hours, I was speeding heavy. I pull over at yet another gas station. The young women are there getting gas and eating some food on a picnic table. Looked like they had been there for a while. I didn't see any sign or the man in the truck, but can't say I was looking very hard for it. Well, here is where it got creepy as hell. Can't say I didn't stare at them a bit. I mean, they were good looking women. As I'm watching them leave I see in the next parking lot over some headlights turn on, and it's the same man as before. He leaves when the women leave once again. Okay, that's a bit weird, but could just be a coincidence as there weren't many places to pull over. I leave a few minutes later and catch up to them. Now this guy's riding with his high beams on. I decided to slow down and stay a distance behind the truck. 10 minutes or so later the women pull over once again to most likely get this guy off their behind. With a sign of relief the truck keeps going and I continue on my way. About 1 mile down the road the guy just pulls off to the side of the highway. So I pull off a mile or so down the road again. Sure enough the women drive by and the guy is still following them. At this point we are out in the middle of nowhere and too many coincidences have happened. I called the cops to alert them, and about 15 minutes the cops pulled the guy over. I could have just seen too many horror movies that started like this and overreacted, but yeah, I never know. Better safe than sorry. I had just finished driving for Uber and was driving down the access road to my home around 3 AM when I saw a body lying completely lifeless next to one of those motorized scooters. I pulled over and flagged down his buddies who were drunk and kept going without realizing their friend was lying on the ground. Ambulance arrived and took the kid away, but I never came to find out if he made it. Frick those scooters, man. I used to deliver pizza and often had deliveries right at midnight when we closed. One time, late at night, I'm driving back to the store through a small neighborhood. Up ahead I see something. It's perfectly spherical, bright / shiny thing, just hovering about 6 feet off the ground. Not moving at all. I pull up very slowly. Still doesn't move. Still can't comprehend what I'm looking at. Just this shiny hovering orb in the road at midnight. At this point my curiosity has overridden my fear. I'm the guy in the horror movie who dies first, because I just gotta know. Either I die, or I get a cool story, right? So I hop out of the car and slowly walk up to it. I'm right in front of it and still can't understand what I'm seeing. So I reach out and touch it. It's a balloon. One of those foil birthday balloons with the street lights shining on it, making it look weird out of context in the middle of the night on an empty road. Dad was driving at night and I was looking out the window and saw 2 red pinpricks in the cornfield, and it followed us. I told my dad about it and he said, in the most calm, casual tone for this situation, "Those are cornfield demons. Stay in the car and you'll be okay." Cue me freaking the hell out when he got out of the car not too long after to check a tire before getting back in. I'm still not sure if that was an actual thing or if he was using a situation to his advantage to teach me to not do anything stupid like that at night. Either ways, it worked, and I still have no idea what those 2 pinpricks were. Not me, but a friend. After dropping me off at my house around 2 AM, my friend calls me and tells me to pick my doors. He said he saw a man standing in the middle of the road and that as he passed him the man kept staring through him. Not at him really, but like there was something behind him in his backseat. He also said he could barely make out anything about the man other than his large eyes and trench coat. What really terrified me is that this happened on a street that only my family lives on and no one would have been out that night. Also, we are a solid 1.5 miles from the nearest neighbor. Freaked me the hell out. I slammed the brakes once because I saw a deer in my peripheral vision. Upon closer inspection, it was a mounted deer head on a stick in the middle of the woods. Slammed the gas after I realized that my friend and I were walking home at about 2 AM one night about 15 years ago. We see this car going in the opposite direction, clearly going way past the speed limit. As he's passing us, we see him go up on the curb and hit someone walking on the opposite sidewalk, decapitating them. This was before we had cell phones and everything was closed because it was such a tiny town. We ran as fast as we could to the nearest house, about 15-20 minutes away, and banged on their door until they opened it so we could call the cops. I still see it in my sleep sometimes. Saw a large pickup truck hit a pedestrian which sent them flying about 20 feet forward. The truck then ran the person over and kept going. I was a teenager and didn't have a phone. I remember knocking on a random person's door for help, crying and yelling. I think the guy at the door probably thought someone was trying to murder me. I was fetching someone from his workplace. Had to go through some fields, and some parts of the road were dark. I saw a thin long object wiggling at an upright position at the side of the road in front of me. Totally freaked me out. I thought I was finally experiencing something extraordinary. As I got closer I realized it was a tail of a cow. It must have escaped from some field and was hanging around at the side of the road. The cow itself was black, the tail slightly lighter in color. That's why I only saw the tail moving first without seeing the whole cow first. I dropped my GF off the night we saw the Mothman Prophecies. It wasn't a super scary movie, but it had some scares. I take the interstate home. On the way, there is a curve where there aren't any lights, just a dark stretch of interstate. As I came around the bend, there was a guy in a black trench coat walking along the side of the road. As it was about 3 AM, I guess I started him. So, when my headlights hit him, he whipped around, and I swear he stared me right in the eyes. My heart jumped into my throat. The whole event lasted maybe 2 seconds tops, but it had my heart racing. Not paranormal, but definitely scary for me. A hitchhiker almost leaping out in front of my car on a dark forest road late at night. The woman literally popped out of nowhere. Had to drift into the oncoming lane. Luckily there was no one else, and painted median there. Read a police report that she ended up getting hit minutes after I drove by. She was intoxicated and running from the police. pretty freaking creepy. I hope she's alright. I can't imagine what the driver that hit her was thinking. Thank you so much for watching, and soobscrooble if you want.